Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into something foundational, your own potential for change.
And how much your mind actually drives that change, right? We're looking at it through the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Exactly. We've been digging into his conversation on The Diary of a CEO, the YouTube channel, to pull out the core ideas for you.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about Dispenza, I think, is how he bridges like hard science with these um, almost limitless ideas about personal transformation.
It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it, about what's actually possible.
Totally.
And for you listening, our goal here, our mission with this deep dive is, well, to break it down, how your thoughts, your habits, your emotions, how they literally shape your reality.
We want to give you those aha moments,
Yeah.
the key takeaways.
Without it feeling overwhelming or too dense, we're distilling his biggest ideas, focusing on what you can actually use for growth.
And maybe clear up some calm confusion about what it really takes to change.
Okay, so let's jump right in. The first thing that really stood out was just the raw power of our thoughts.
Oh, absolutely. His research points right at this direct link, between what's going on in your head and your actual physical health.
It's not just mental noise.
Not at all.
Hmm.
He makes a really strong case that thoughts can, well, make you sick.
Hmm.
But the flip side, and this is crucial.
They can make you well, too.
Exactly. That's the implication. Your own thoughts having that kind of real physiological impact. It's pretty profound when you think about it.
It kind of blows your mind. And he backs this up
Yeah.
with a statistic, right, about doctor visits.
Yeah, a huge one. Somewhere between 75 and 90%. Think about that. 75 to 90% of visits to healthcare providers are apparently linked back to psychological or emotional stress.
Wow. That's not just a small link, that's massive. It suggests our mental state has these huge real-world effects on our bodies.
Precisely. It shows that, ignoring your inner world has very real, tangible consequences, not just for you, but even for the healthcare system.
And he talks about something else that sounds a bit strange. People getting addicted to negative emotions.
Yeah, that one takes a second to unpack. Addicted to feeling bad.
Seems counterintuitive, right?
It does, but what he's suggesting is that people can get so used to certain negative feelings like frustration or victimhood or anger.
That it becomes their normal.
Kind of, yeah. Their baseline.
Yeah.
So they might unconsciously, seek out or even create situations that trigger those familiar, albeit crummy, feelings.
Because it's what they know,
Yeah,
even if it's miserable.
exactly. Familiarity, even negative familiarity, can be this powerful subconscious driver. It's like the comfort zone, even if the zone isn't actually comfortable.
He even has this line, something like reliving a miserable life they never even had just to avoid changing.
Right. Clinging to that known misery rather than risking the unknown of something potentially better. It's a powerful defense mechanism, I suppose.
So, okay, if thoughts can do all this damage,
Mhm.
what about the upside? Can they genuinely create well-being?
That's the core question, isn't it? If our minds can have such a negative impact, like that statistic shows, then logically they must hold immense power for positive change too. For real, robust health.
It just totally reframes everything. Okay, so this power of thought, how does it relate to, like, who we are? He talks about the programmed self.
Yeah, this is fundamental to his whole model.
Yeah.
He argues that by the time we're, say, 35 years old,
Mid-30s.
right, about 95% of who we are is basically running on autopilot, on a program.
95%. That feels
Yeah.
huge. Like we're barely steering the ship most of the time.
It kind of feels that way sometimes, doesn't it? And that program isn't external. It's built from our own repetitive, automatic thoughts, behaviors, emotions. Basically, our habits.
The takeaway being that our daily grind, what we think and do over and over, really cements who we become.
And the neuroscience backs this up. He often quotes that principle. Nerve cells that fire together, wire together.
I've heard that one before.
It basically means repetition strengthens brain connections. Same thoughts, same choices, same actions, same feelings. You're literally hardwiring your biology into those patterns.
Like carving deeper grooves in the brain.
Exactly. Think of a path in the woods. The more you walk it, the clearer it gets, the easier it is to follow without thinking.
So we're reinforcing these ruts constantly. How do we, get out of them if they're not working for us?
Well, that's where consciousness comes in. Awareness. The first step is just noticing those automatic programs.
Becoming aware of the unconscious stuff.
Yes. Observing the thoughts, the knee-jerk reactions, the familiar feelings. When you bring them into conscious awareness, you're not just running the program anymore.
You become the observer.
Exactly. The observer, maybe even the director, instead
Yeah.
of just a passenger on autopilot. That awareness is the absolute key first step to taking back control.
So you have to be present enough to catch yourself before you slip back into the old groove, like seeing the strings before the puppet master pulls them.
That's a great way to put it. He argues many people effectively lose their free will to these programs. The body gets conditioned, expects the same future based on the past.
And breaking that cycle takes real effort.
Significant, sustained, conscious effort and awareness. You have to actively choose to step off that well-trodden path.
Which leads us nicely into habits themselves, good ones, bad ones. We all have them. He talks about their usefulness, but also the difficulty of changing them.
Right. Habits start consciously, don't they? Like learning to ride a bike or speak a new language. Takes focus.
Total concentration at first.
But then with practice, it becomes automatic. Frees up your mind to do other things multitasking, like he says. So they're efficient.
Super useful for just getting through the day, but yeah, the dark side.
They can work against us just as easily. We can get stuck in patterns of, say, complaining all the time or blaming others or feeling sorry for ourselves.
Those become automatic too.
Exactly. So habits are this double-edged sword. They can serve us or really hold us back.
And the challenge comes when we try to change the bad ones. He mentions the discomfort.
Oh yeah, he really stresses that. Trying to break an ingrained habit feels weird, unfamiliar. It's like stepping into the unknown, and our brains, our bodies, they crave predictability. They don't naturally like that feeling.
So that discomfort is actually a sign you're doing something.
Pretty much. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable, to tolerate that unfamiliarity, to actually make a lasting change. That's a huge takeaway.
Yeah.
Real change often feels uncomfortable at first.
You have to lean into it, not run away.
Exactly. Move beyond what feels familiar, even if that familiar feeling is, negative.
Okay, now something really hopeful in his message is this idea that we can overcome even really deep stuff like trauma or ingrained patterns from childhood.
Yes, this is so important. It pushes back against that deterministic idea that our early life seals our fate.
Like if you had a tough childhood, you're stuck with certain patterns forever.
He directly challenges that. He gives examples, lots of them, of people who've been through terrible things, abuse, significant trauma.
And they've changed.
Completely transformed. Not just coping better, but genuinely achieving profound well-being. It really suggests our past doesn't have to be a life sentence.
That's incredibly empowering. And it's not just a mental shift, right? He talks about biological changes.
Yeah, this is where his research comes in again. He talks about measurable changes happening inside people as they transform.
Like what?
Changes in brain activity patterns, you can see it on scans. Improvements in heart rate variability, showing better nervous system regulation, even changes in gene expression.
Wow, changing how your genes express themselves.
And even the release of different metabolites in the blood, basically, biochemical signs, the body's operating differently.
Yeah.
It just highlights how connected mind and body really are in this change process.
It's amazing that shifting thoughts and feelings can trigger such deep physical changes, which leads us to some of the really extraordinary stories he tells. The ones that almost sound impossible.
These are the ones that really stretch your beliefs, right?
Yeah.
He talks about witnessing things like stage 4 cancers just
Disappearance.
disappearing
Yeah.
against all medical odds.
Seriously?
Yeah. People regaining sight after blindness, recovering from things like ALS, lupus, MS, Parkinson's, even spinal cord injuries, strokes, PTSD.
Even regrowing a thyroid gland? I think I read that somewhere.
Yes. Things that just fundamentally challenge our standard beliefs about what's possible for the human body and mind.
Those stories are just astounding. They force you to question your own limits. The key takeaway has to be that our beliefs about what's possible are incredibly powerful.
And he links this to belief in yourself. Believing change is possible for you seems connected to believing these big transformations can happen at all.
It's a cycle.
Kind of. If you deeply believe you can change, you open up to possibilities. And seeing or believing in impossible transformations strengthens your own belief that you can do it too.
He uses that 4-minute mile analogy, doesn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Once Roger Bannister broke it, suddenly others could too. It shifted the collective belief about what was possible.
So witnessing transformation changes the game for everyone.
He seems to think so. He tells these incredible stories, like people literally getting out of wheelchairs at his events. He puts it down to a sudden, profound shift in their self-belief and state of consciousness.
And the NFL player with MS?
Yeah, regaining mobility through basically self-love and changing his internal state. It just shows this untapped potential we have when we shift things internally.
Okay, these stories are inspiring, but, the skeptic might ask, Where's the science behind these miracles? How does he connect the two?
That's key. He really emphasizes the science. He calls it the contemporary language of mysticism.
Meaning understanding the how makes it less mystical.
Exactly. Understanding the neuroscience, the biology involved, empowers people. It gives them a map, a reason to believe it can work.
So learning creates new brain circuits.
Right. And repetition, practice, makes them stronger, more permanent. It's about building the hardware for change.
He outlines a process, doesn't he? Information leads to understanding.
Information, then understanding, then mental rehearsal, practicing it in your mind, then having the actual experience, which creates the emotion, and that emotion helps you embody the change.
Like steps on a ladder.
Pretty much. And he mentions Nobel Prize research showing just paying attention to new info can double brain connections in an hour.
Wow. Focus is powerful.
And teaching it to someone else, that really cements it in your own brain, installs the hardware even deeper.
Then comes the experience part, actually doing it.
Right. Experience enriches the brain circuitry, but it also creates the feeling, the emotion. And that feeling is what anchors the learning in the body, makes it more than just intellectual.
So the goal is to shorten the gap between thinking about the future you want and actually experiencing it.
Yes. Consistently aligning yourself mentally and emotionally with that future until you start living it, embodying it right now.
Okay, this brings up a really important point. Why do thoughts matter so much, even the ones we don't act on? You might think, it's just a thought, it didn't hurt anyone.
He strongly disagrees with that. He argues every single thought, even a fleeting one, creates a chemical reaction in your body.
Every single one.
That's his point. So those little negative thoughts, they add up. They can trigger stress responses, contribute to imbalance over time. Your thoughts have immediate biochemical effects. That's the takeaway.
So it creates this loop. Same thoughts lead to same choices.
Same choices lead to same behaviors create same experiences generate same emotions.
Which then reinforce the same thoughts and the same biology. You're stuck.
Exactly. He says evolution, real change, comes from thinking differently, making new choices, creating new experiences, feeling new emotions. You have to break the cycle.
And having a clear vision of the future helps.
Hugely. Being defined by a compelling future vision is a powerful motivator to break out of the past.
Okay, so we know a lot of this stuff intellectually. We get great advice all the time. But there's often this gap, right, between knowing what to do and actually doing it. Why is that so hard?
He talks about this a lot. Often he says it takes a crisis.
Like hitting rock bottom.
Yeah, a trauma, a diagnosis, a major loss, a betrayal, something that pushes you to what he calls the lowest denominator.
Where staying the same is finally more painful than changing.
Exactly. The pain of the present outweighs the fear of the unknown. The old ways just don't work anymore.
It's like a forced wake-up call. He also mentions metacognition, thinking about your thinking.
Yes, becoming aware of how you've been thinking, acting, feeling. That self-awareness is critical. But he suggests a better way than waiting for a crisis.
Which is?
Be defined by that future vision now. Actively work on elevating your state every day. Be proactive, not reactive. Create your future instead of just reacting to problems.
And combining clear intention with elevated emotion. Heart coherence.
That's the magic formula, according to him. Clear intention, knowing what you want, combined with an elevated emotion, feeling like it's already happened. Living from that future state.
But the difficulty is making those different choices, stepping into the unknown.
That's the hardest part. Willingly embracing the discomfort, the unfamiliarity, choosing to, as he puts it, romance the future instead of the past. Being pulled forward by possibility, not anchored by memory.
In those moments where you make a firm decision backed by strong emotion, those are key.
He says those are often the moments that initiate real, lasting change. A point of no return, almost.
This makes me think about common myths around change. What limiting beliefs does he try to debunk?
A big one is about beliefs themselves. He says they're often unconscious programs based on past experiences.
And they limit our future.
Yeah, often without us even realizing it. So a key part of change is consciously choosing to believe more in your future potential than in the limitations of your past. Your beliefs about what's possible literally shape your potential.
Shifting focus from what was to what could be. He also talks about that trap of waiting for things outside us to change first.
Oh yeah, the victim mentality. I'll be happy when, or I can change if only. He pushes back hard on that.
Advocating for a creator mentality instead.
Exactly. Taking personal responsibility, even suggesting that negative events might reflect a lack of conscious creation on our part, which is a challenging idea for many.
Definitely. His point is you have to change your personality, your thoughts, actions, feelings to create a new personal reality.
That's the core of it. You can't stay the same person and expect a different life.
And mental rehearsal is a big tool for this, like the piano study.
Yes, that study showed mentally practicing piano changed the brain almost as much as physically practicing. It primes the brain for the new behavior.
And you can do the same with emotions. Condition your body to feel gratitude or joy.
By repeatedly evoking those feelings, yes. So the whole model is about unlearning the old, relearning the new, breaking old habits, reinventing yourself, pruning old connections, sprouting new ones, deprogramming and reprogramming.
We've covered the mental and emotional side, but what about the biology? What actually changes physically during these transformations?
His research, especially from those 7-day retreats, shows really dramatic stuff. Brain scans, fMRIs, EEGs show big increases in brain coherence.
Meaning the brain is working more harmoniously.
Yes, different parts communicating better, less like a house divided, more integrated.
And the heart changes too. Heart coherence.
Definitely. Through training and feeling things like gratitude, kindness, love, they see measurable improvements in heart coherence, which is linked to better health overall.
And other biological markers.
Significant changes in blood metabolites, the biochemical fingerprints of metabolism. It
Hmm.
shows the body is literally living in a new internal environment.
Even gene expression changes in just a week.
Apparently so. And shifts in the gut microbiome, too. It all points to the nervous system acting like this incredible internal pharmacy, capable of healing when we change our state.
Now, he works with people trying to change, so he must see the struggles. He talks about the fixer's dilemma, wanting to help others who resist.
Yeah, he gets that frustration, wanting someone else to change, seeing what they could do, but they just don't.
So what's his advice there?
Lead by example. Show people what change looks like through your own life, rather than just giving advice. And practice unconditional love, understanding people change when they're ready. You can't force it.
He also made that point about information not landing if someone's in a negative emotional state.
Right. You can give someone the best information, the most logical plan, but if they're drowning in fear or anger, it just won't sink in. Their brain isn't receptive.
So helping someone shift their state is the first step.
Often, yes. Gently helping them out of that negative emotion makes them more open. He believes real change comes from personal insight, that aha moment.
And analyzing yourself while negative doesn't help.
Can actually make it worse neurologically. The key is to overcome the emotion tied to the past memory, not endlessly analyze the story. That's where wisdom and freedom come from.
Shifting gears a bit, he seems quite concerned about the state of the world.
He does. He questions the information we receive, the motives behind it. He suggests we need, like, a collective intervention as a species.
He calls it a cultural disease. Lack of connection, fear, anger.
Yeah, being kept in survival mode, basically. Fear, anger, confusion. It keeps us divided and stuck.
But he's still optimistic, believes in people's inherent goodness.
Deep down, yes. He thinks when we're not in survival mode, our natural tendency is to connect, to give, to be empathetic.
But chronic stress is survival mode.
Exactly, fight or flight. It creates imbalance, leads to disease. He links stress hormones directly to negative emotions and that focus on materialism.
And getting out of those negative states is hard, especially when times are tough.
Very hard. Plus, those stress hormones can be addictive. We might unconsciously seek out problems to get that familiar chemical hit.
But again, thoughts alone can trigger that stress response and make us sick.
Yes. But the flip side holds. Thoughts can potentially make us well. So managing our emotional state, self-regulation, is crucial, especially now.
He comes back to this idea of addiction to negative emotions. Can you elaborate on that? It's not the usual way we think of addiction.
Right. We usually think substances, maybe behaviors like gambling. But he suggests we can become addicted to the feeling itself, anger, sadness, anxiety.
And we use external things to cope.
Often, yeah. Food, shopping, drama, substances. But in trying to manage those uncomfortable underlying feelings.
Yeah.
But if you change the internal emotional state,
The need for the external coping mechanism lessens.
that's the idea. Address the root emotion, not just the symptom or the coping behavior.
So changing these deep beliefs and emotional habits, how does intention play into that?
He says changing a belief often takes a really firm decision, made with energy that's greater than the old hardwiring and emotional conditioning,
You have to really mean it.
and signal that clearly to your body and subconscious. Consistent, focused intention plus that elevated emotion, that combo creates a memorable, powerful moment that anchors the change.
He says something like, to change is to be greater than your body, environment, and time.
Yeah, pretty profound statement. It means overcoming ingrained habits, body, external triggers, environment, and the pull of past memories or future anxieties. Time.
And the body somehow knows if you're serious.
He suggests it has this precognitive awareness of your true intention. It knows if you're just going through the motions.
And synchronicity, those meaningful coincidences, they're like feedback.
Kind of like signs from the universe or your subconscious that you're on the right track, that the internal shifts are starting to ripple outwards.
But there's a difference between understanding this and believing it works for you, right?
Huge difference. That's where the consistent practice comes in. Meditation, inner work. It's about bridging that gap, moving from the old self to the new self through repetition.
And relapse happens when you go unconscious again, fall back into old thoughts, feelings, react to triggers.
Exactly. That's why mental rehearsal is so useful. Prepare for challenging situations in your mind so you don't react automatically.
Remind yourself how you want to think, act, feel.
Constantly. It's a counterforce against the old programming. And he insists, with consistent practice, that's when the magic starts to happen. The results of internal change start showing up.
Okay, let's get super practical. He offers a morning routine. Why morning?
He says just after waking and just before sleep are key times. Your brain waves are slower, the subconscious is more accessible.
The analytical mind is less active, the guard is down.
Pretty much. So meditation then helps you bypass that critical factor and access the subconscious for reprogramming.
And just saying affirmations isn't enough if you don't feel it.
Right. The body needs to be emotionally aligned with the intention for it to stick.
He says, first thing, don't grab your phone.
Definitely. That instantly pulls you back into the external world, the old programs.
So what's the routine then?
Okay, basically, sit down. Quietly, intend to tame the animal of the body's habits. Disconnect from the outer world, the past, the future.
Get present.
Then, identify the greatest version of yourself for today. Choose maybe 2 thoughts you won't go unconscious to, 2 behaviors you will change,
Be specific.
and identify 2 familiar negative emotions you'll watch out for. Then, actively rehearse the desired state. How would greatness think? How would it act? And crucially, feel the elevated emotions. Open your heart
Don't just think it, feel it.
and make a decision. I'm not getting up until I feel this way. Then commit to maintaining that state through the day.
And reflect at night.
Yeah. Where did I go unconscious? Learn from it. Repeat daily. The shift happens, he says, when have to becomes want to. That's the conscious creation part.
He also talks quite a bit about brain coherence and heart coherence. Can you break those down?
Sure. Stress, feeling out of control, it makes the brain incoherent. Different parts working against each other, like that house divided.
The disconnect.
But focusing on open awareness, on space, on nothing, that helps synchronize the brain, creates coherence, different parts work together better.
And that feels good. Reduces anxiety.
Yes, it's associated with calm, clarity, less anxiety and depression. Heart coherence is similar, but achieved through positive emotions.
Gratitude, love, appreciation.
Exactly. Those create smooth, orderly heart rhythms, unlike the chaotic patterns from stress or negative emotions, and the 2 are linked.
Brain and heart coherence together.
That creates a state of wholeness, inner peace. The ideal state, he says, is a relaxed heart and an awake, coherent brain.
Does he share his own morning routine?
He does. Wakes up super early, like 4:30 a.m., needs that uninterrupted time, prioritizes 7-8 hours sleep,
Then what?
has a think box time organizing thoughts, what to avoid, what to focus on, then a play box meditation, actively working to change his state.
How long?
Allows about 2 hours. That doesn't always need it all. The goal is to feel like something shifted by the end.
And his meditation is about.
Finding the present, getting into the unknown, beyond the self, body, thoughts, environment, time, space. Focusing on nothing, which paradoxically creates profound brain changes.
Does he set an intention?
Yeah, daily intention. Be relaxed and awake, present in his heart, inspired to help others. He admits balancing his work in the global organization is challenging.
He needs his team.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Values them hugely. But he's committed to being the example of his work. Says, witnessing others transform is the biggest reward.
You mentioned his work comes from personal experience. Was there one specific event?
Yes, that accident in 1986. Being run over by a truck, breaking 6 vertebrae.
And he chose not to have the recommended surgery.
Right. Decided to heal using his mind. Describes it as incredibly hard at first, a real struggle to control his thoughts and feelings, his dark night of the soul.
But it worked.
He started seeing physical improvements, and that was the turning point. Led to that perspective shift. What if the worst thing was actually the best thing? It became the foundation for everything.
Incredible story. What about his view on technology now? It's everywhere.
Views it as a tool driven by the mission. The growth of his work wasn't planned. It grew organically from community needs, corporate work, research, etc.
And the science is catching up. It's not seen as fringe anymore.
He emphasizes the scientific validation now is significant. Meditation is being recognized as a powerful intervention with real health benefits.
How does he define happiness?
Basically, not needing anyone or anything external to be happy. Freedom. Being comfortable with yourself.
Does he get overwhelmed?
Admits he does sometimes. Needs time to recenter. His main goal isn't just happiness, but wholeness. Beyond lack, beyond separation.
If he had one last message for the world, what would it be?
Believe in yourself. Remember you're a creator. Stay open to possibility. We're all more powerful, more unlimited than we think.
And he's grateful for the feedback.
Deeply. The stories fuel him. His vision for the next decade. More research, a dedicated center, shifting the healthcare conversation, promoting meditation as a way of life, demystifying it with data.
Hopes the focus shifts more to the human spirit, not just AI.
Yeah, that future trends get sexy about human potential.
And this global walk for the world. What's the idea there?
It's September 23rd, a first ever event. Motivation is community, overcoming that illusion of separation. Based on research showing peace gatherings have positive effects.
Being the prayer through walking meditation.
Exactly. They teach different meditation types, including walking. It's about embodying change, standing up for the world. Taps into that idea of coherent collective networks influencing reality.
Like those random event generator experiments.
Yeah. He invites everyone to join Walk for There. World has the details. The goal is to shift the global trajectory, even just a little.
He also shares some beliefs he's apparently scared to share, the more out there stuff.
Yeah. Like the idea that we probably perceive less than 1% of actual reality, that the probability of seeing true reality is basically zero.
Wow.
And that we shouldn't exclude ourselves from the unknown, the potential of an unknown self beyond linear time and space.
Other reality is.
Yeah, reality is beyond our senses that we might be able to tap into. Latent brain systems that could transduce electromagnetic frequencies into profound experiences.
The pineal gland as a radio receiver.
Potentially, yeah. Triggering mystical states, maybe similar to psychedelics, which the body can also produce endogenously. Definitely pushes the boundaries.
Okay, last one. Hypothetically, if he were president,
Yeah.
what would he prioritize?
Education reform, better pay for teachers, more Socratic learning, reevaluating the medical model, unifying people, focusing on principles over politics, reducing debt, ending wars.
Careful consideration of AI.
Yes, interreligious understanding. Big investment in regenerative agriculture, environmental restoration, soil, oceans, species, and promoting access to healthy food as medicine. Quite a platform.
Wow, this has been incredibly rich. A really fascinating deep dive into Dr. Dispenza's world.
It really has. The core message that just keeps coming through is this immense power we have within us for change.
Fueled by our thoughts, our intentions, and having the courage to step beyond our programming.
Absolutely. So, for you listening, maybe take a moment to reflect on all this.
Yeah.
Is there one small step, one actionable thing you could try today?
Maybe exploring that morning meditation practice he suggests, even just for a few minutes.
It could be a start.
And maybe we leave you with this thought. If 95% of who we are is programmed by 35, what incredible potential is waiting in that other 5%? That conscious awareness.
What could you unlock if you really focus there?
Definitely encourages further exploration of his work, the mind-body connection. So much to think about.
For sure.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today.